Hello and welcome to my video that I've made. I'm going to show you how to make a scrub cap that is double-sided for the sides, but the crown part is only one layer, and that's to help make it not too hot for the head. But I'll show you how to make sure that you get a nice seam on the inside as well as on the outside. The fabric I'm going to use, this is for a friend that she loves this Buffalo Bill character. The fabric I'm going to use to make it easier for the demonstration will be two different ones. So I have this frangipani fabric here. This has all been pre-washed and ironed. It's just a little bit creased a bit now, but I've been making some of these for the scrubs for some nurses. This is from the two-sew pattern that Brenda made. So it actually is originally a double-sided, so it's reversible, including normally the other ones I've made, the cap, the crown part is double-sided as well. But I thought I'd try this way. So you want one of the main body pieces. You want one of the crown, which is, that's folded over, but that's how it goes normally. And then one of the, another one of the alternative fabric, which is the one that will be on the inside. Now, I wouldn't normally match these two fabrics together, but just so that it's easier for you to understand, that's why I've done this. So you want to find the center of each piece, and the center being, this will be the front where the head is, or the forehead, and this is the back of the crown. So because I've just sort of creased that, I know that this is where my center is. And I'm doing this one-handed, so I'll just put a little pin there. Just like that. So that's just so that I know that that's the middle of the crown. I know the pin's crooked, but it's okay. And you also want to find the middle of basically the forehead, which is this part. And this is where the top part of the crown will end up being sewn, so that all of the seams are put in, and you can't see any of the seams or anything. So I'm just going to pause and do that, and you also need to do it on your inner piece as well. Okay, so I've got the center marked for both pieces of the mains and then the part of the crown. And what we're going to be doing is sandwiching the crown part in between the two main pieces. The other thing I just wanted to point out that I'm going to quickly do, so the original pattern calls for a strip of elastic to go here on the final cap, but I'm not going to be doing that. I don't find it very easy to do, and so I'm just going to create a little hem with my, I'll just do a bit of a little hem in like that and double it over, so that because it's going to be, this is the inside of the cap, I don't want the edge to fray or anything, so I'll just do that. So you'll see that my thread is actually like a bright pink. I wouldn't probably normally use it. I'd probably use a white for this normally, but I thought that way anyway it's going to show up quite easily for you. So this is just sewing this small little hem part on the back of the crown basically. I'm just going to pause because I can't do it one here. Okay, so I've just sewn this little part on the end of the crown. So as you can see, I've doubled that over and it's nicely contained, so it's not going to fray. Of course, reverse stitch on both ends as well. Mine's a little bit funny. My machine played up. So, but otherwise I will show you how to layer all of these because we're going to sew them all at once together. Okay, so basically you lay out your main fabric piece, which is the one that's going to be the main one on the outside, and of course it matches what the crown is. And you've got your center mark there, and with the crown center mark you want to match those up, but obviously because these are the two that we are going to have on the outside, so you want the right sides facing together. So that will be just like that, and of course they match up at the top there. Let me just and in this instance I just use a clip just to hold those in place for now. Then you're going to need to put the other piece, which is your inner side, on the outer part of that. Now it is going to be the right side of this fabric to the wrong side of the crown, but it will make more sense once we do that. So again, you're going to match up this and just put the clip together there. Okay, so we can see I've just got the clip at the top, so that's at the top of the crown, the center of the crown, and the two side pieces, and the right sides are facing each other. Now if you were to watch or read the instructions for these kind of things, they would say to pin all the way along here while you're catching the edge of the crown. I find it's easier just to start at the middle of the crown, and we're going to sew our way this way while very slowly while we add the crown, because it's circular. It's a little bit difficult, so I find it easier just to sew as I go and adjust the positioning as I go. Okay, so we have that in there, right in under the foot. I'm just trying to get you a good vision of that. So basically I've just done the initial reverse stitch just to start it off, and I've just got the needle placed in the middle of the fabric just so that it holds it there for me. Now as far as the seam allowance goes, I don't know if you can see, but the edge of my presser foot is just about the edge of where I'm doing my seam allowance, and I'd say that's about 1/2 centimetre, because this first line that's on the actual plate of the sewing machine is 10 millimetres, so 1 centimetre there. So I kind of go a bit by the edge of the presser foot. So the way that I do it is, as you can see, these are the two frangipani sides, and I basically just match these up as much as possible. I'm doing this left-handed, and I'm not actually left-handed, so because I at the moment can only go to there, I literally will just sew that little bit. And I just make sure that my needle is in the fabric. And what I do each time I get to the edge of where I can sew up to, I kind of do a little bit of maneuvering with the fabric, like so, and then making sure that I've got all 3 layers in there. So whatever happened, the last little section didn't record for you. So basically I've sewn from the tip of the crown as I finished off step 1, and I just sewed, as I was saying in the video, all the way along here with the 3 layers. So I've basically maneuvered the 3 layers along. Not sure how that's ended up happening there. And as I said in the video, which didn't record, I stopped about 1 centimetre from the end of the crown part. Now what I'm going to be doing is flipping this over, and I'll be starting from this end and working my way along. Now I don't know if you can see, but where my needle is in relation to where it's going to start sewing, the end of the previous stitch is down here. So it's about 1 centimetre in or so. And I just do that I still do the reverse stitch, but I just do that just to make sure that it definitely catches all the layers and crosses over the 2 different sets of stitching there. So something that didn't really show properly because of the last video not recording, I just wanted to say is to make sure that your layers don't get all bunched up underneath each other there. So I've got your inside layer here, this is the crown, and then this is the outside layer. So basically you make sure that the needle is in the fabric because it's much easier to prevent the fabric moving around, and you line all 3 up and you're sewing until here, which is like where I can make the join. I also said in the other video that didn't work, as far as the seam allowance goes, I go to, at the moment, the edge of my presser foot, which is about 1/2 to 3/4 of a centimetre. As you can see on the main presser plate, that first line there is 1 centimetre or 10 millimetres. Not sure what that is in inches. So I just go a little bit further, and so see how it looks like it's not really matching up. If I really wanted to, I can check under the presser foot like that and see, yeah, it's a little bit out, but that's also part of why I make sure the needle is in and I align it up again. And yeah, there's going to be a little bit extra on the side, but basically that's part of doing the seam allowance like that, so that it makes sure it does catch all layers. So as you can see, I'm getting near the end for the bottom of the crown part. I was just going to say that this is just basic woven cotton fabric, so it doesn't particularly stretch all that well. So that's part of why I do a lot of stopping, starting and maneuvering. I would have to do that even if I pinned it anyway, so that's why I didn't bother pinning it. I just do back and forth. So just hold on, and as I said, you need to stop about 1 centimetre from the end of the crown when you get to this part. Okay, so now I've got basically an inside out scrub cap, and then the this is going to be the interior is there, and you might look at it and be going, how the heck do we get that so that it's sewn nicely? Now, first off, before we do any of that, what I am going to just do is just run stitch all around this joining part from the crown and the mane of the cap, just to give it that nice finish, which is on this one. That's what that stitching is, just on the outer top. So I'll just do that. Okay, so I'm nearly at the end of sewing around the top of the crown, as you can see. I just wanted to show, so we can see in the gap here, that's where the end of the crown section is, but you can see that I sewed only up to that, so that about 3/4 of a centimetre there. So just when I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure that I fold both sides in about the same sort of seam allowance that I would have previously, and I'm going to make sure that I catch that edge of the crown in there, and then I'll be stopping just after that. Okay, so now you can see that I've finished off at the ends on both of those, and as far as the cap itself goes, we've got the raw edges here. And on the inside, it just makes sure that, as you can see, it's, aside from my not straight sewing each time, it's actually just to make it neat so that for the wearer, the crown isn't fraying. That noise, if you can hear it, is my cat that's just wanting to go out. Just a moment. So what we now want to be able to do is sew these two parts together, but of course we don't want to have to go through and iron all the way along so that you've got a seam allowance and join it up and blah blah blah. What we're actually going to be doing is it's kind of using the Japanese scrunchie technique that I'm sure some of you have found and know about online, how they reverse sew it. So basically you want to, me doing it with one hand, you want to make sure that you're turning the cap inside out, so right sides of the frangipani facing each other. But what you're going to be doing is, of course, you're not going to sew that part together because then you won't have a cap to open and wear. What you actually want to do is sew this side of the outer part of the mane, which is right side up, and then without flipping it or anything, you're going to be sewing it to this side of the outer side of the inner fabric. And basically the way you do that is you're going to bunch all that stuff under there and you're going to join it up here. I start, when I do it, I actually start at the very end of one of the side straps, and you're going to make sure you have, you leave about a 2 or 3 inch, I'm going inches now, about 10 centimeter gap, because you need to be able to turn it out again. Okay, so I wouldn't normally pin this, but I'm just doing it just to show you. So basically I'm going to, if this is the top of the crown part, and in here, if you can see it, that's actually where the crown ends. The crown part ends where I did the seam. So that's actually where I'll start sewing, and I'll go all the way along the bottom of the tie. And this is about how much of a gap I'll leave, and I'll do it right here on that section just there. The other thing I was going to say is sometimes you'll find that one of the strips is shorter than the other, and that's fine. So this is the inside fabric. I'll just trim that little bit as well before I start the sewing. So I'm just going to start sewing. I don't pin it, but you're welcome to pin it around if you want to. And I'm going to stop when I get over to this side. So I just wanted to show you, I've just sewn down here, but because I'm terrible and remembering to clip my corners when you turn it out, so normally I wouldn't be doing this one-handed. So just make sure you clip your corners there, so that it is neater once you've turned it out. And usually, of course, you'd be doing this and would manage it with 2 hands. So I'm just going to readjust this back around here and put that down. Okay, so as you can see, I sewed just to the end here, which kind of matches up with where the back of the crown is, and I did a reverse stitch, and then I've left a gap. And now I've just done in here, I've restarted and I've done a reverse stitch again to join it up. Now what you'll see is up this end, it seems all bunched in and that it's going to be impossible to turn it all out, but just trust me, you're going to keep on sewing along this way. And the magic is that it will, you just keep pulling it through. And this is exactly the technique from the, like that you use for the Japanese scrunchies. If you don't know what I'm talking about for the Japanese scrunchies, so you just pull some more through. Just Google it on YouTube. It is fantastic, and it's such an easy way to do a scrunchie. I love it. So see, it looks like there's nothing much happening here, but you just keep on pulling. This is one of the ties from the other side. Just keep on pulling it through which shouldn't normally be this difficult, but it's because I'm just doing it one-handed to show you. See, I've got the needle still in the fabric, so it's kind of holding it there. And so you just keep matching those two sides, which are coming up there. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I've matched them up. So, oops, I forgot to put the needle in the fabric. Hang on. And this is why we do that, ladies and gents, if there's any gents. This is why we put the needle in the fabric, so that this doesn't happen, so that it doesn't move. Okay, so keep on going. Looks like we're nearly coming to the end, so just keep pulling through what you can. And it is actually, we're at the end part, so you can see we're going to be sewing all the way around, and then the end, even though you can't really see it, is bunched in here. So I've just pulled that out a little bit more, and you can see that the end of my tie, again, it's one end is a bit longer than the other, so just like before I trimmed that, I'll trim this side as well, and then this is where it's going to finish, because that's where the other side of the crown meets up with the two large pieces. So make sure once you come back down here that you clip your corners for these two as well, and we're going to sew all the way around up to here. Okay, so we've sewn all the way around, and I'm just going to quickly trim my corners. Okay, very badly trimming with one hand. So it's all bunched up, and you're probably thinking, what have we done? But over this side is where we have the opening. So you can see the opening there. So just trim, that's the little string just where I did the gap. Right. And all we're going to be doing is, in that gap, we're going to pull from in there. Now I'm just going to try and put my phone here. So we're just literally going to you don't want such a close-up of me. Okay, I can't work it out, so hang on. You're going to have to just put up with me working it one-handed. So basically, everything that you can, pull out from in there. Okay, so you can see that we've got the outside of the cap, and then the inside is the lining part. And there is all closed seams except for where you did the little gap. Now, that is just over here. I haven't pulled the ties through yet. You'll hear people talk about using something to get these sort of things pushed out and the corners nice and neat. Personally, I use the blunt end of a knitting needle to push it through, and then once I've got right to the very end, which will be the inside of this, then I use just the pointy end very gently so I don't break through my fabric, just to make sure that the points go out as much as I can. Okay, so now we've got it all turned out nicely. So basically it will go like this. I'm just going to press it so that it looks a bit nicer, but also to press, so this is the little gap that we use to turn it. So just to press those seams in, and then we're going to be sewing all around the bottom. Right, I just wanted to show you something that I do to make, to help make sure that you get right out to the seams. So what I do is, before I'm pressing, I just have a bit of water in a bowl, and I literally just use it because I find if you've got just dry fingers and you're trying to get it out, the seams right out, it doesn't really work. So you're going to be ironing it anyway, and it'll come to the edge that way. So now we've got it all nicely pressed on the edges. You can't even tell where the opening is, but I know it's just here. So I've just ironed the seams in. And so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to literally sew all the way around the outer edges of this. And making sure that you then that way close up your side that you had open. I tend to start at sort of one of the back parts just because it's less obvious then. You don't want to say start right in the middle of the front of the forehead, which people will see where you double back stitched. So now you can see we've got a completely finished scrub cap. So we've got the lovely frangipanis on the outside. Don't ask me about this fabric because I've had it for about 20 years, so I'm sure Spotlight doesn't stock it anymore. We've got the nicely hemmed edge, which has sealed up where the gap was that we pulled the garment through. And then on the inside, aside from my some of my dodgy stitching work, it would actually be all enclosed seams in there so that you don't have any fraying or anything like that. You've got the ends here of the crown, which again, don't look at my stitching work so closely, but I believe the pattern calls for a piece of elastic in there, so that would be a bit bunched up ordinarily, which I understand might be good for people that have, like ladies that have a long ponytail or something to put in. I myself, just in trying these on, I find that they fit okay just as they are. And I guess now the wearer of it can turn it up if they would like. If they don't really want to have that inside pattern on the outside, they can just turn it up on the inside. So, like so. They don't have to turn it up. It depends on what they've got going on as far as their hair goes. The only thing I would say, if you're using two different fabrics for the inner and the outer, with the intention being that the inner one will be a folded up one, obviously this fabric, as you can see, it didn't really matter much because unless you look closely, you don't notice. But it's actually got little glitter love hearts on it. So when you're looking at it like this, they're actually upside down at the moment. But when you're using the cap to be reversible, to fold up the edge like this, you can see that the heart is up the right way. So I guess what I'm just saying is, just if you are going to be worried about that, that means that this piece is something that you have to think about with the direction of your fabric, the design, into how you want it. So unlike this one, which is I've got the same fabric on both inner and outer, because this face is all over the place, so it kind of doesn't really matter with that one. So just something to be aware of. Thank you.